The story of Jericho in the book of Joshua chapter 6 is more than an ancient battle account. It is a powerful revelation about faith, obedience, divine strategy, and the purpose of God in human history. After wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, the Israelites finally stood at the edge of the promised land. Jericho was their first obstacle, a heavily fortified city with massive walls that appeared impenetrable. From a military standpoint, it was intimidating. From a human perspective, it seemed impossible. But this battle would not be won by swords, ladders, or siege engines. God's unconventional plan. Instead of ordering an attack, God gave Joshua specific instructions. March around the city once a day for 6 days in complete silence. On the 7th day, march around it 7 times. The priests were to blow ram's horn trumpets, and at the final signal, the people were to shout. No battering rams, no siege towers, no visible warfare. This was not strategy as the world understands it. This was strategy rooted in obedience. For 6 days, the Israelites walked in silence. Imagine the tension, the watching city, the confusion of the soldiers, the questions in the minds of the army. Yet they followed every instruction, exactly as given. On the 7th day, after circling the city 7 times, the trumpets sounded, the people shouted, and the walls collapsed. The victory came not through force, but through faith, a moment of divine intervention. Jericho represents one of the clearest biblical examples of divine intervention. The outward collapsed walls described in Scripture align with archaeological discoveries at es-Sultan. Excavations led by figures such as John Garstang and Kathleen Kenyon uncovered evidence of fallen mud brick walls, heavy burn layers, and storage jars filled with grain, suggesting a sudden destruction and a short siege. Interestingly, the walls appear to have collapsed outward, which could have formed a ramp for invaders, an unusual detail that mirrors the biblical narrative. The city was burned, just as the text records. Yet Rahab and her family were spared because of her faith and her protection of the Israelite spies. Jericho marked the beginning of Israel's conquest of Canaan. But spiritually, it marked something even deeper. It demonstrated that victory belongs to the Lord. 4 life-changing lessons from Jericho. Lesson 1. Follow God even when it feels impossible. Jericho's wall symbolized impossibility, yet obedience unlocked what human strength never could. There will be moments in life when the path God sets before you seems illogical or overwhelming. But Jericho teaches us that when we trust God fully, even when the plan feels unconventional, the impossible becomes possible. Faith often looks like walking when you feel like fighting. Lesson 2. Make space to hear God's voice. A critical detail in this story is that God spoke, and Joshua listened. Joshua sought direction. He did not assume. He did not rush. He listened. In our modern, noisy world, we rarely pause long enough to hear God clearly. Yet the same practices still matter today. Prayer, scripture, stillness, worship, journaling. When we quiet ourselves, we position our hearts to receive divine instruction. Breakthrough begins with listening. Lesson 3. God is purposeful, not random. God did not act randomly. Every step, 6 days, 7 laps, trumpet blasts, the shout, was intentional. The same God who orchestrated Jericho orchestrates our lives. Even when circumstances feel chaotic, God is purposeful. As Scripture reminds us in Romans 8:28, God works all things together for good for those who love Him. Jericho proves that delays, instructions, and waiting seasons are not accidents. They are part of a larger design. Your story is not random. It is being written with intention. Lesson 4. Waiting is part of the victory. Perhaps the hardest part of Jericho was not the shouting. It was the waiting. 7 days of marching, 7 days of obedience, 7 days without visible results. Waiting can feel frustrating. It can feel unproductive. But waiting on God deepens trust and strengthens faith. As Isaiah 40 verse 31 says, "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength." The Israelites did not rush ahead of God's timing. They moved when He said move. They shouted when He said shout. Victory came at the appointed moment. Why Jericho still matters today. Jericho is not just about ancient walls. It is about the walls in our lives. Walls of fear, walls of doubt, walls of addiction, walls of generational struggle, walls of impossibility. Jericho teaches that those walls do not fall by human might alone. They fall through obedience, faith, unity, and alignment with God's purpose. It reminds us that breakthrough does not always come through force. It comes through faithful persistence. When we follow God's direction, even when it feels unconventional, when we listen instead of rushing, when we trust that He is purposeful, when we wait instead of quitting, walls fall. The fall of Jericho stands as a timeless testimony. True victory does not come from human strength, but from obedience to divine instruction. May we have the courage to march when God says march. May we have the patience to wait when He says wait. May we have the faith to shout when He says shout. Because when God fights for us, even the strongest walls cannot stand.
If you have enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything new. For those who are subscribed, you are greatly appreciated, and thank you for your support. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and God bless.